So I quit Microsoft to start a SaaS company completely bootstrapped. But this is not what I had in mind. All of my belongings were stolen, except what fit into this bag and this carry-on. This isn't just about that story. It's more of an announcement of what I'm going to do next. But before I continue, let me just show you the sad state of affairs as it is right now. So this is where I sleep, and this is where all my belongings would go. If I had any. So let me go back a little bit and explain how I even got into this situation. What really happened to all my things? And then what's next? And then finally, why YouTube? So I'm a Canadian citizen and I moved to New York City for my first job out of college. It was in a small to medium-sized consulting company in the fintech space. And when you hear consulting, you're probably thinking rebranding strategies, or maybe you heard a consultant talk about what they actually do. And then they'll use words that seemingly sound like English, but then in that combination makes absolutely no sense. We were less of that kind of consulting and more of a product company. And what I mean by that is we had a software offering for hedge fund managers. And where we would come into the picture is as consultants, we would go on site, figure out what their workflows were, and then anything that was manual or could be improved using our platform, we would consult them on how to use our software to accomplish what they needed to accomplish. As a side note, it is wild how much of the finance industry is propped up by Excel. Now, I ended up staying at that company for 6 years. And for a software engineer, that's a really long time. And I only ended up staying for that long because I really liked the people that I was working with. They were amazing people. And I'm not even talking about just talent. I'm talking about personality as well. I really like spending time with them. But what ended up happening was our department was bought out and we got merged into a different company. And that led to a lot of changes happening. And eventually, people one by one started to leave. And that set me up for success, sure. I became the product lead, but that wasn't enough to keep me there. And that's where Microsoft comes into the picture. It was always my dream to get into big tech. And Microsoft initially was that dream come true. I loved the team that I worked with. And the project that I was initially on was super fun. I got to learn so much from my peers. And of course, that project was AI related. But the team I joined was in R&D. And one thing you gotta know about R&D is when budget cuts come around, R&D is usually the first to go. And that was the case for us. Our team got dissolved and we got reorged into different teams. And in fact, over the 3 years that I was there, we got reorged multiple times. Eventually, I found myself becoming unhappy with my job. And that's when my friend at work put me onto a YouTuber named Alex Hormozi. And for those of you that don't know, Alex Hormozi is a YouTube personality that teaches business concepts in a very simplified way. And up until that point, I thought I was going to go completely in the IC route. And starting a business wasn't really in the cards for me. Because as a software engineer, we're kind of put on a linear path. Starting from college, trying to get good grades, graduating, then studying a shit ton of lead code, only to go through a grueling interview process that looks for a skill that you'll never need in the actual job. And then finally, climbing that corporate ladder until you inevitably retire. And all throughout that, starting a business is nowhere in that picture. But after watching hours of Alex Hormozi and Y Combinator videos, something clicked in me. And that's where I was decided. I'm gonna try doing this and going all in, because I figured if I don't try to do this now, I'm going to regret it in the future. And so I decided to quit, go all in on this. I hired movers to pick up my stuff from New York to move to Toronto. And after a month of them being dodgy about where my belongings were, I got this call.
That the ship owned parked at the security yard over the weekend. The trailer was reported stolen.
Apparently, they stole the entire truck trailer. Like out of a Fast and Furious movie. Except the trailer was parked at a warehouse and they did it overnight. So less Fast and Furious, more slow and mildly irritated. But overnight, everything I owned was gone. And it's not really the financial loss that sucks, because sure, I was stupid. I got the lowest insurance rate, but it's really the things that can't be replaced. The physical photos that I've had, the gifts I've received, some of them handmade. And I'm really not a collector, but one thing I did collect were t-shirts from cities that I would visit. And over the last 9 years, I've done a lot of traveling. And anytime I went to a city that I really liked, I would commemorate that point in time by buying a t-shirt from there. But yeah, all of those things are now gone. And I get it. This happens all the time. People are in much worse situations with house fires, natural disasters, but it still kind of sucks. So what's next? I'm going all in creating a SaaS company in an industry that up until recently was a complete black box for me, and that's marketing and sales. Over the last month, I've been doing a ton of research around marketing and sales, and I want to be solving the leaky top of funnel problem. And what that means is companies will usually have a lot of advertising that leads people into their website, where they put in their contact information and their sales team reaches out to the lead to follow up. Sometimes they'll be filling in that information during off hours or the weekend, or the sales team will be inundated with these requests and it'll take a while for them to reach back out to the lead. And in that time, that hot lead that's enthusiastic and ready to solve that problem starts to lose interest. That enthusiasm fizzles out. I want to be solving that problem with AI. So when that lead comes to the website, fills in their contact information, within 60 seconds, immediately reach back out, making sure that that hot lead stays hot, answering preliminary questions, qualifying the lead to make sure that it's a good fit on both sides, and then finally booking a sales call with a sales engineer so we could turn things around very quickly and improving close rates. I have a lot of ideas on how to improve this overall process, and I've already started building things out. What I need to do now is start reaching out to companies to make sure what I'm building lines up with what they really need. So that brings me to YouTube. Why YouTube? Well, part of it is because I need to create an accountability structure for myself. Those weekly Scrum meetings are a thing of the past for me. I'm doing this all on my own now. Another aspect is this will be a sort of networking for myself. Because I'm doing this all on my own, I'm gonna need all the help I can get. And hopefully this will put feelers out there to help me connect with people in the industry. The other side of this is that I've been noticing a lot of AI vibe coders online these days, where they'll create something seemingly overnight and then become successful or become profitable almost immediately. And to me, that's not relatable, because in my experience, it doesn't lead to production ready code. So to me, it's not relatable at all. Hopefully, this series can be more of a realistic insight on how you could start a SaaS company with nothing, completely bootstrapped without any VC funding, all the way to profitability, all within a realistic timeline with all of its realistic ups and downs, all the mistakes that I'll probably be making, and I'll be documenting everything every step of the way. Hopefully, this series will be that transparent look on starting from nothing, building all the way up to a successful company. Or it will be a downward trajectory towards my inevitable homelessness. Either way, if this sounds interesting to you, stick around.